Lagos, the nation's commercial capital. This is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Amarachi Ubani.
Tonight, a total of 5 bodies now recovered from the site of a tragic building collapse in the Yaba area of Lagos. Delta State government seals up Horizon Shine Nursery and Primary School premises following the death of a 19-month-old pupil of the school who was allegedly beaten by his teacher. The All Progressives Congress and the People's Democratic Party win 3 local governments each in Saturday's Abuja Municipal Council polls. And the United States justifies evacuation of the U.S. Embassy in Kiev over what it describes as imminent threat of Russian military action in Ukraine. Five bodies have now been recovered from the site of a collapsed building in the Yaba area of Lagos on Saturday. It follows the discovery of 2 more bodies today. Meanwhile, building professionals say this may not be the end of such disasters, except erring building contractors are punished. Our correspondent, Dari Duwu, reports.
24 hours after a building caved in Yaba area of Lagos, the excavators sit idly on the rubble at the scene. One rescued alive, 4 bodies recovered by midnight. A student on industrial training who was said to have been attached to an engineer on the site is missing, and his family members are back to the site for information.
So now, like last night, it has now been continuously ringing.
This development forced the return of emergency management officials back to work as they continue the rescue mission.
We recovered 4 bodies. I need to assure the good people of Lagos State, we will do holistic investigations about what led to this. But however, we've gathered some informations, and those informations right now, we will change our mode of operations. We will look into the information given to us, because every information in emergency management is very, very important.
Some residents of the area are also worried that some buildings in the neighborhood may suffer similar fate if appropriate agencies fail to nip the problem in the bud.
Well, people are catching on the investment opportunities which they have identified, because we have the University of Lagos as having accommodation problems and what have you. That's not a bad idea, but the issue is, how do you build, how do you come up with proper buildings that would not expose, occupants to unnecessary risk? And I can tell you, we have many in the neighborhood. It's just a matter of time.
In this neighborhood?
Yes, within the community.
Many with what? With defects?
With defects, structural defects. Is it possible for anybody to build without approval? It's capital no. Somebody somewhere is dropping the ball.
Building professionals are also on ground for early assessment.
I'm of the opinion, it's a personal opinion, that until the government makes up its mind that anybody that is found guilty is punished, we will continue like this. It's getting too much. The question is we're having this thing, how many people are punished? When synagogue came down, I was a member of the committee. I was going with other people to the site. We did the investigation. We went to court. Report was written. What happened to that report? When that one in Ikoyi came down, I was on the field. We started the case. The case is still on. What happened? The one at Isaleko, what happened? As long as this thing comes around And all we do is to bring bulldozer, bulldoze the place, but if we find how many casualties, write reports, and nothing comes out of the report, we will continue like this. And it's unfortunate the way we are losing life.
Hours after combing the rubble, one more body was recovered. This incident is coming 3 months after a 21-story building caved in Ikoyi area of Lagos, where more than 50 people, most of whom are construction workers, died. Dari Ido, Channels Television News.
We're in Delta State, where the government has sealed up the premises of Horizon Shine Nursery and Primary School, Asaba, following the death of a 19-month-old pre-nursery pupil of the school. Obina Odeze was allegedly flogged by his teacher, who is also the son of the school proprietress, leaving marks of cane on his body. The little boy was said to have fallen sick after the beating and was taken to the Federal Medical Center, Asaba, where his condition deteriorated until he eventually died on Saturday morning. The Commissioner for Basic Education in the state, Chika Osai, told Channels Television that the school in question does not have the approval of the state government to operate, which informed the decision to seal it up. Meanwhile, the teacher and the school proprietress are currently in police custody while investigations are ongoing. To security, the Katsina State Police Command says terrorists have abandoned their haven and assets as police patrol officers foiled a planned attack in Bugaje village in Jibia local government area of the state following a distress call received by the State Police Command. According to a statement by the command spokesperson, officers of the anti-kidnapping unit were dispatched to the area, leading to the recovery of rustled animals. A police team also recovered 2 brand-new motorcycles belonging to the terrorist group and food items said to be stolen during previous operations. Meanwhile, the police in Niger State say scores of terrorists have been killed and 20 abducted persons freed. According to the police spokesperson of the state, the terrorists had invaded some villages around Nasco in Magamaloho government area, where the police, with support from other security agencies, engaged the assailants, killing many of them. After the operation, which lasted more than 2 hours, kidnapped victims were rescued and muscled cattle recovered. The police listed some of the items recovered from the attackers to include 1 AK-47 magazine with 30 rounds of live ammunition, 7 handsets, and a Honda motorcycle. Staying with security, the battle against insurgents in the northeast goes on. Attacks against medical and humanitarian workers and infrastructure in the area causing culpable harm to the vulnerable and needy. It's the view of the Vice President of the International Committee of the Red Cross, Gilles Carbonnier. Mr. Carbonnier told Channels Television's Ladi Akeredolu on our current affairs program Newsnight that such attacks are a blatant disregard of international humanitarian law.
I must admit, security and access in the Northeast is a big challenge. And it has been so for long because, of course, as a responsible employer with 800 or over 800 staff working in the country, we have to make sure that our staff can operate in full security. So we do all what we can to maintain this level of safety and security, but at times it means that we don't have access to places where people are in dire need because of security concerns. Now, if you look at attacks, we have seen in the Northeast, indeed, as in other places in the country, attacks not only on humanitarian organizations, but also on the medical structures, so on medical staff and healthcare facilities. So what we do is that we have launched a worldwide campaign to ask for protecting and not attacking the healthcare centers, the healthcare workers, and humanitarian workers, because they must be respected, especially in those places where you have an armed conflict and armed violence, because it is in those places that people need it most. And the problem with these attacks is that the result is that the most vulnerable people then are the ones who don't get access to any treatment, they don't get access to any healthcare services. So this is a permanent concern, and we are calling to all the parties, and we are making a plea to indeed respect and protect medical facilities, healthcare workers, and humanitarian workers. And we also try to reunite families, because we have many people who lost track of their loved ones when they were displaced. And what we have here is 24,000 families asking us and the Nigeria Red Cross to help reunite them with their daughters, their brothers, parents, when they have been separated because of the conflict.
You can watch the full interview with Mr. G. Carbonnier. Do watch Newsnight tomorrow on February 14th, 2022 at 9 p.m. right here on Channels Television. The results are in for the Federal Capital Territory Council elections, and 6 of the area councils in the nation's capital. The All Progressives Congress won 3 area councils, while the People's Democratic Party won 3. The elections, which were generally peaceful across the nation's capital, experienced very low turnout across the board and recorded 1 official accidental death around the polling units in Kuje Area Council. Our correspondent Kayla Megwa has more.
Unlike other states in Nigeria, the Federal Capital Territory is governed by a minister appointed by the president, who oversees 6 area councils containing 62 wards. 478 candidates and their running mates from 14 political parties contested for the positions of 6 area council chairmen and 62 councillors. The area councils are Abaji, Buari, Gwagwalada, Kuje, Kwali, and Abuja Municipal. The People's Democratic Party won the Kuje, Buari, and Abuja Municipal Area Councils, while the All Progressives Congress won the Gwagwalada, Kwali, and Abaji Area Councils. In Cairo Collation Center, where the Abuja Municipal Area Council results were given, the All Progressives Congress challenged the election results, saying the irregularities he claims his party officers witnessed are enough to cancel the election results for the Abuja Municipal Area Council.
For me and my political party, it is not acceptable for me to sit here and watch injustice meted on me. It is not fair. And I raised it verbally, said you put it in writing. I did put it in writing. Now, putting it in writing, you didn't respect my favor, you didn't respect my right. What do I do from here, sir?
The winner of the Abuja Municipal Area Council election, Mr. Christopher Zaka of the People's Democratic Party, while celebrating his victory, decried incidents of violence during the elections, especially at the Orozo district.
We lost 2 people yesterday, and the election doesn't have to go that way. Power comes from God. So you don't look for power by killing human beings. You don't look for power by importing thugs. So we are unhappy yesterday. They should allow people to vote for who they want. So I have to say this to everyone, that power comes from God.
The incumbent chairman of Buari Area Council, John Gabaya, who has been re-elected for a 2nd term, expressed his disappointment at the serial failures of the bimodal voter accreditation system machine deployed for the elections by INEC.
I know how many times I called REC concerning the BVAS system, the BVAS machines we were using. All the federal capital, all the 6 area council in federal capital territory, we faced same challenges, most especially in a remote area.
The winners of the area council elections have 3 years in office. As celebrations erupt in parts of the nation's capital for the election results, it is hoped that the election regulatory body would look critically at any flaws recorded during the exercise and correct them before the next elections. Kayla Megwa, Channels Television News.
In part 2 after the break, as the truckers' protest continues in Canada, Nigeria's Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, accuses the Canadian government and Twitter of double standards in the way they classify violent protesters in Nigeria and in their own countries. Join us again. Welcome back. If it has joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. A total of 5 bodies now recovered from the site of a tragic building collapse in the Yaba area of Lagos. Delta State government seals up a Rise and Shine nursery and primary school premises following the death of a 19-month-old pupil who was allegedly beaten by his teacher. The All Progressives Congress and the People's Democratic Party win 3 local governments each in Saturday's Abuja Municipal Council polls. And the United States justifies evacuation of the U.S. Embassy in Kiev over what it describes as imminent threat of Russian military action in Ukraine. Staying with electoral matters, the tradition of allowing partisan consideration in the choice of who becomes Nigeria's president has been described as wrong and should be discarded by Nigerians as the 2023 general elections gather momentum. The youths of Plateau State, with the support of every Nigerian campaign initiative, are advocating that in the 2023 elections, Nigerians should consider credibility, capability and competence as the criteria for good governance. The charge was made at the town hall meeting in Jos, the state capital, to sensitize youths towards the coming elections.
Determined to make the right choice in voting in political office holders, especially for the office of the president, a youth organization in Jos, Plateau State, is sensitizing other young people from the state's 17 local government areas to look beyond partisan politics while choosing leaders in the forthcoming elections. Delivering his keynote address, the Vice-Chancellor of Khartoum University, Professor Nanveng Gambo, identifies freedom and order as conditions required for political activism.
Freedom is expressed in disagreement. You are free to disagree with my opinion, with my view on public issues, just as I'm free to disagree with anyone, but that disagreement must not be allowed to continue without reaching an agreement. That is the beauty of it, because if disagreement should persist, then the other crucial condition, which is order, will be endangered.
His presentation goes on to explain reasons why Nigerian voters should not allow partisan consideration determine who they vote into office.
Irrational attachment to partisan concern would deny the country of vibrant, assertive, visionary and strategic leadership, desperately needed to unlock the gate to incredible prosperity of Nigerians, irrespective of socio-economic, political and ethno-regional backgrounds.
Other speakers highlight the peculiar challenges facing the country and insist that the competence of a candidate to handle these challenges should be a major criteria young voters should look at.
Merit, capacity, competence and ability, and firmness and integrity must not be wheeled out, because Nigeria is at a crossroad. We need somebody that a whole Nigeria can believe in.
Issues such as zoning the presidency to particular parts of the country are still real conversations being had today. The bulk of Nigeria's electorate are young people, and as the 2023 general elections gather momentum, sensitizations such as this one are trying to ensure that this time, parochial sentiments are not the determining factor when choosing political leaders in Nigeria.
Meanwhile, the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, has asked youths in the country to be innovative and proffer solutions to unemployment rather than waiting for white-collar jobs. He was speaking during the combined convocation ceremony at the Federal University of Wukuri, Taraba State. Professor Osinbajo also warned against fanning the ember of crisis, particularly between the Tivs and Jukun in the state.
Students and members of the academia, including the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, at the Federal University of Wukari, filing for a combined convocation ceremony. Graduating and seeking white-collar jobs is not just a solution to the challenges facing Nigeria, but being innovative in exportable business skills is the pathway to accelerated growth, as the Vice President charges the graduates. He insists that value addition should be the watchword for a rapidly expanding population of the country, as government will support initiatives that will create wealth.
I urge you, therefore, to see the various challenges in our environment as opportunities for the creation of solutions. We are a nation rapidly expanding with attendant human sustenance needs. You must take full advantage of the knowledge and skills that you have acquired to innovate and create, be productive, and make value addition your motto.
While asking young Nigerians to avail themselves of the social investment programs, the Vice President insists that any call for the disintegration of the country is an invitation to economic suicide. He urged the chiefs and jukuns in Taraba State to close ranks, defy temptations of mortal adversaries, and fight the challenges among them for the growth of the state.
You may have heard, for instance, that because someone is chief, then the jukun and the ndoma and the idoma are mortal adversaries. Or that if you are jukun, then the chamba or the fulani are your implacable enemies. Let it be that it is your generation that will bury once and for all these prejudices and heal the wounds and build a great society of brothers and sisters of different tribes and different tongues.
The Taraba State Governor Darius Ishaku, who was represented by the Secretary to the state government, stressed the need for peaceful coexistence as he encourages tertiary institutions to include entrepreneurial studies in their curriculum.
I appeal to the people of Ukari, the surrounding communities, and indeed adjoining settlements area from Benue to maintain and sustain the existing peace this area has been enjoying.
Dignitaries present at the occasion include the former governor of Bauchi State, Adamu Muazu, the CEO of Innocent Motors, Innocent Chukuma, and Damian Dodo, senior advocate of Nigeria, who were conferred with honorary doctorate degrees during the convocation ceremony. In all, 3,897 students who have been found worthy in character and learning graduated with various degrees from different disciplines, with 104 first-class graduates, just as the Vice-Chancellor of the institution restates his commitment to improve the standard of education.
The federal government is accusing the Canadian government and Twitter of double standards in the way they classify violent protesters in Nigeria and the West. The Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, who made the accusation at a media briefing in Oro, Kwara State, was reacting to the unfolding events in Canada, where truckers are protesting over COVID-19 vaccine mandates and other COVID-19 restrictions. Alhaji Mohammed says Canada and Twitter, which had called the hoodlums who destroyed public and private property in Nigeria during the EndSARS protests as peaceful protesters, turned around to tax similar protesters in their own countries as insurrectionists and terrorists.
During the EndSARS protests, which culminated in the blockage of public roads and massive destruction of government and private property, Canada was one of the countries that spoke out in support of the protesters. Recall also that Twitter actively supported the EndSARS protesters and even raised funds, while GoFundMe was used to raise funds for the protesters. These are the same entities that are now rushing to distance themselves from the protests in Canada and even denying them the use of their platforms. This is similar to what played out during the January 6, 2021 insurrection at the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C., where those involved are either still being investigated or have been charged to court. I don't blame them. Nobody wants their country destroyed under the guise of protests.
Meanwhile, 4 weeks after the suspension of the microblogging site was lifted by the federal government, the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, has filed a lawsuit against the presidency for failing to publish a copy of the agreement. SERAP is arguing that publishing the agreement with Twitter will promote accountability and enable Nigerians to scrutinize the document and seek appropriate legal remedies and ensure adequate conditions for lifting the bans are not used to suppress legitimate discourse. SERAP says although the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, had responded to the Freedom of Information request, his response is unsatisfactory, as he stated that the details of the agreement is in the public domain. SERAP is also seeking an order of mandamus to direct and compel President Buhari and the minister to clarify the manner and scope in which the agreement with Twitter will be enforced, and whether the agreement incorporates respect for constitutional and international human rights. An Indian businessman has been arrested by operatives of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, the NDLEA, in Sokoto State over alleged smuggling of 134,700 bottles of codeine syrup through land borders between Nigeria and Niger Republic. In a related development, NDLEA operatives also foiled attempts to export large quantities of heroin, methamphetamine, tramadol, and cannabis through the Murtala Mohammed International Airport and 3 courier companies in Lagos. In the same vein, operatives also apprehended one Felix Eshemohai with 1.75 kilograms of heroin while trying to board Royal Air Maroc to Casablanca, Morocco, and Emmanuel Onozurike on Rwanda Air flight to Dubai with cannabis concealed in foodstuff. The NDLEA also recorded some arrests in Adamawa, Ogun, Kwara, Sokoto, and in Gombe states. In other news now, Nigeria dropped 5 places in the recently released Corruption Perception Index by the Transparency International. Our next report highlights these 7 areas that are responsible for the drop.
Nigeria's fight against corruption is not having any positive impact on the Corruption Perception Index, the most widely used global corruption ranking in the world. According to Transparency International, the ranking measures how corrupt each country's public sector is perceived to be, according to experts and business people. 7 parameters were used for the ranking, and they include: 1. The non-compliance, internal control weaknesses issues in ministries, departments, and agencies. 2. Security sector corruption. 3. Failure to investigate high-profile corruption cases and prevent illicit financial flows. 4. Absence of asset recovery, protection of whistleblowers, and other key anti-corruption legal frameworks. 5. Judicial challenges, the delay in treating high-profile cases of corruption. 6. Corruption in the COVID-19 response. There's no financial report for the management of the pandemic. 7. Twitter ban, shrinking civic space, and intimidation of human rights defenders.
Based on this assessment of the methodology, Transparency International feels strongly that it is a methodology that is good to go.
However, the federal government disagrees with the report, insisting that the fight against corruption remains a key point for the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari.
And what I've tried to do is to detail what we've done in terms of convictions, in terms of recoveries, but more importantly, in terms of the institutional reforms we have carried out, and in terms of the structural platforms that are available today that work every day to fight corruption.
Transparency International Corruption Index, against the background of the international position as it relates to UNODC report, against the background of the commendation by the African Union as it relates to the commendation of President Buhari, and empirical evidence as it relates to the performance of EFCC, it goes without saying that there is no basis upon which the Transparency International report can stand.
In its midterm report, the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission revealed that it recovered and restrained cash and assets valued at 166 billion naira from corrupt persons in the last 2.5 years.
We recovered and restrained a lot more than what we had set as our target. Just to clarify, what we recover is not the same as what we restrain. What we restrain is money we stop the federal government from spending.
The Corruption Perception Index recommends the investigation by anti-graft agencies into allegations of corruption by politically exposed persons and a speedy passage of relevant laws to strengthen anti-corruption efforts. Hopefully, these actions will improve Nigeria's rating when the 2022 index is released in 2023.
Still ahead on the news at 10, Akachukwu Chukwuemeka engages us in a dialogue, but not in words. That's coming up on our Tribune. Stay with us. Welcome back. Motorists in Lagos are still experiencing difficulties getting petrol at filling stations around the metropolis. Our energy correspondent Olu Phillips brings us an update.
Not yet, maybe not soon. It does appear there's still some more time to redeem with scenes like this at some petrol stations in Lagos metropolis. At various stations visited where the product is available, sales is ongoing, but not at a pace that allows for a free drive-through experience, which was dominant for a long time before the circumstances of last week. At other locations, they are simply not open for business, neither is there any attendant to explain if they have supplies or not. Despite these conditions, authorities have been explaining how the tracking, isolating, and subsequent withdrawal of the off-spec PMS has altered the flow of supplies of petrol from the vessels to tank farms through trucking and pipelines into engine tanks. The waiting time is also not going down well with some consumers.
Fuel is very important. For real, fuel is very important because we have to go out. I'm a Uber driver. I have to do my job every day. Now I have to go down, there's a client in my car now, I have to go down, buy a keg, fuel inside my keg and pour it in my car. Does that make any sense?
We cannot eat, we cannot buy something, we cannot go on our own. To buy fuel is look at everywhere is even one kind, we don't understand.
Patience is a virtue this period. For those who can't, they find a ventilation like this. It's another week, one that will be measured in this instance by the outcomes of supplies or otherwise. Olu Phillips, Channels Television News.
And in Kogi State, cabinet members and employees of the state government have been advised to shun acts capable of negating the efforts of the government in promoting good governance and accountability. It's a message coming from the state government during the unveiling of Kogi Open Governance and Accountability System and the Kogi Digital Album. The glass hall of the Government House Lokoja is filled with top government functionaries, civil society organizations, APC party loyalists, youth leaders, members of ministries and parastatals in the state, including representatives from the judiciary. They're here to witness the launch of Kogi Open Governance and Accountability System, which enables adequate information dissemination to the people of the state. Residents of Kogi State are expected to log on to the system and freely ask questions of the governor and government officials on activities of government from time to time. The head of the Ministry of Information and Communication in the state, in his opening speech, explains that KOGAS has created an opportunity for the people to share ideas and contribute positively to governance of the state.
A platform that will put the leaders on the spot. A platform that will give power to those who hire them to be the governor of Kogi State.
The president of the Nigerian Bar Association, who was represented by the chairman, Kogi State branch of the association, in a lecture laments that despite the laws backing citizens to always checkmate the financial activities of the leaders, people have failed to utilize the law.
I personally have not seen where a citizen will write to the commissioner for works, please, how much have you spent on that bridge you constructed? That's enough.
Unveiling the KOGAS platform, the deputy governor states that the hallmark of the present administration is transparent conduct of government businesses. He notes that the introduction of KOGAS will enable Kogi State to sustain its position as the only state in Nigeria that has scored 100% in its annual evaluation process.
That one of the hallmarks of my new direction administration is the transparent conduct of government businesses. We have been appraised and ranked and rated by several national and international organizations as one of the most transparent, if not the most transparent state governments in the country.
With laptops distributed to all public relations officers of the Ministry of Information to enable them work effectively, the project is aimed at enabling the people acquaint themselves with the policies and activities of government in Kogi State. The Coalition Against COVID-19, CACOVID, a private sector task force, launched in March 2020 to support the government's fight against the coronavirus pandemic, has pulled 100 billion naira to bolster the fight against terrorism and other civil disturbances. This is as the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, explains that credit to the agriculture sector will see a 10% increase in weeks ahead as a strategic move to tackle food insecurity. The chairman UBA Group, Mr. Tony Elumelu, and the Central Bank governor explained that both interventions remain key towards maintaining macro-socio-economic development for the country. Who are speaking at the second day of the UBA Chairman's Forum in Abuja.
It's a time to unwind and a time to take stock of how UBA PLC is faring as key officials of the bank from within and outside the shores of the country gather for the second day of the Chairman's Forum. In the midst of all glitz and glamour, the chairman of the UBA PLC reminds staff of their role in developing Nigeria, just as he announces how the private sector is supporting critical sectors of the economy, including security.
We have just put 100 billion naira together, private sector again, under this coalition, to help fight security or support our security agencies, capacitize them to be able to deal with the issues we're having in the country on security.
Next speaker is the governor of Central Bank, who explains how its intervention is yielding results through a strong collaboration with the private sector.
Given our population size of over 200 million people, along with favorable youth demographics, we were aware that if necessary support was provided to the households and businesses, such as improved access to finance and better infrastructure, these measures would boost productivity and help in enabling greater direct investment flows into our economy.
Officials of the bank speak on the key takeaways from the forum.
And, we talk about, governance, risk management, HCMs as well, because no matter what the strategy you can have, as used to say the chairman, you need to have the right human resources to lead the performance of the bank.
Coming from Cameroon, it's good news for us. And I spoke to my colleagues, at least 5 of them already, from other African countries. We take home these key messages we're going to share with our colleagues from a Nigerian leader in the public sector, in the macroeconomic sector, combined with our transformative agenda within UBA to make Africa, the Africa you and I would indeed be proud of.
UBA PLC promises to use its wide coverage within and outside the shores of Nigeria to make the nation's economy better.
In Dialogue, there's an engagement with colours, which the artist says are reflections of stories that are close to his heart. Our tribute tonight shares the artistic tales of Akachukwu Chukwuemeka.
The works of art displayed in Dialogue, a solo exhibition by Akachukwu Chukwuemeka, shows his new style and technique, a collection of his reflections over the years.
It's like my personal reflections. It's like my notes, my diary notes. So I try to bring it out for people to look at it in colors. That's why you say Dialogue, artist's personal reflections in colors.
About 20 paintings contain different stories the artist is fascinated about. He carefully captures them on each tie and dyed canvas, and they are connected as well.
Each one is a complete short story, but at the same time, each one is linked to the other one. You know, it's like the story of the society, where an individual story does not make the story of the society. You have to collectively bring everybody's story and put them together to make a complete story. So that's what we're doing here. And each piece of work is like a short story linked to another story, which makes a complete story. So I try to capture my personal reflection about the society, about me, my experiences, and other people's experiences.
From this collection, it has over 800 of these pieces. He's been working on it since 2013. That's over 8 years now. And it's just basically his perspective of observing the sky. So he's using cloud formations to kind of tell a story of things that he's experiencing currently in society from his background. So it's like a personal journal for him. This is like a diary. He's illustrating things that he has experienced from religious background as well as friendships down to the very society that we live in. So each of these pieces tells a story about that.
He takes time to explain some of the exhibits. The message that lies within has a lot to do with African literature.
If you look at the one titled Grief, the one right here, Grief, it shows what people pass through, you know. When you lose someone, it's called that sometimes you cannot say how you react when you lose someone. When they tell you, oh, this person is dead, you may not expect, you may not even know how you react. It's people around who are the people that can tell you, look at how you react. Some even may want to jump into the river. Some will want to jump into the grave. They will lose control of everything. So I try to capture, having experienced loss of loved ones, I try to have an introspection. Grief, what does it mean? How does it come out? How do you conquer grief? So I could put it into creativity.
This need to give a visual appeal to interesting African tales through amazing art is part of the artist's Forms for My Sky series, which is painting the continent with color.
Residents of Fika, the headquarters of Fika local government council of Yobe State, have been lamenting the perennial water scarcity in the community, forcing many to relocate to other parts of the state. The terrain, which is surrounded by mountains, is one of the factors suggested for why drilling of boreholes is very difficult, but there may be some solutions soon.
Fika, which is one of the local government councils created in the late 70s, had suffered water shortage for over 4 decades as a result of its rocky area located on the plateau, which makes drilling of boreholes very difficult. The residents, who are mainly farmers, depend solely on dug wells for both human and animal consumption, a situation that exposes them to cholera outbreaks, forcing many to relocate to other parts of the state due to lack of potable water.
A lot of efforts were made over the period of some 10, 20 years or so back. But unfortunately, not that they did not try their best, but God has made it this way that only the strong hand of Ibrahim Bongwe brought about the issue of water problem to an end in the Fika local government.
The only borehole was, that was drilled was by late Baba Pada, the former chairman of Fika local government. And the depth is around 530 meters. So the trend has been like this for the past 30 years.
To ameliorate their sufferings, Senator Ibrahim Bamai, a lawmaker representing Yobe South at the National Assembly, embarked on this water project that will benefit over 10 communities in the local government council. The water project, which is at an advanced stage, will be connected to many villages and towns of Fika local government area. The residents, both young and old, are gathered here in a town hall meeting to appreciate the project amongst other numerous projects executed in the zone by the senator.
It's almost in the final stage because it has been tested and it has been proved to be effective, and the water has flowed from its source to the people of Fika. Now I want to believe the next thing is to launch it and to release it finally for the people of Fika to enjoy affordable water.
There was an initiative during the military regime of Brigadier General Buba Marwa for the supply of water from Ngaji River, from Gadaka to Fika, but it became abortive.
As the project nears completion, it is believed that the problem of water scarcity faced by the residents of the area will be eradicated.
This is to inform our viewers that your award-winning station, Channels Television, will be off-air on the DSTV platform between 12 midnight tonight and 5 o'clock tomorrow morning. This is to allow us migrate to our new satellite. These signals will be restored after the migration, and you will continue to receive us as before. During this period, you can still watch channels on all our other platforms, online, on satellite and on smart TVs. We do apologize for any inconvenience this may cause our viewers. Police in Canada have cleared the remaining protesters blocking a key bridge between the country and the United States after a week of disruption. Canada's protests against COVID vaccine certification to cross the border have paralyzed trade across the Ambassador Bridge in Windsor, Ontario. A judge issued an order on Friday to break up the protest, but dozens of demonstrators remained in defiance. Police have now cleared the road, though the bridge remains closed. In a statement, police said today's action resulted in over a dozen arrests on a charge of mischief, which refers to damage or interference with property. Multiple vehicles were also destroyed. None of the arrests became violent. Clearing effort first began on Saturday morning when many of the vehicles involved left peacefully on police orders. But as news of the police action spread, more protesters turned up, temporarily swelling the crowd. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has stood by calls for foreign citizens to evacuate Ukraine because of the imminent threat of Russian military action in the country. He made the remark after Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called for calm, saying the biggest enemy is panic. More countries have joined the list of countries evacuating embassy staff and urging their citizens to leave Ukraine, as Washington and its allies warn the Russian military, which has 100,000 troops massed near Ukraine, could invade at any moment. Israel says it is evacuating relatives of staff at its embassy in Kiev, citing an aggravation of the situation in an apparent reference to the crisis between Ukraine and Russia. Australia and New Zealand have become the latest countries to urge their citizens to leave as soon as possible, joining Britain, Japan, Latvia, Norway and the Netherlands. Canada shut its embassy in Kiev and relocated its diplomatic staff to a temporary office in Lviv, the western part of the country. The embassy closure was announced shortly after Prime Minister Justin Trudeau told Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky that Canada stands with his country. Russia says it has decided to optimize its diplomatic staff numbers in Ukraine, fearing provocations by Kiev or others. It says its embassy and consulates in Ukraine continue to perform their key functions. Today, U.S. staff at the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe started to withdraw by road from the rebel-held city of Donetsk in eastern Ukraine amid fears of a possible Russian invasion. The OSCE conducts operations in Ukraine, including a civilian monitoring mission in Russian-backed self-proclaimed separatist republics and the regions of Donetsk and Luhansk, where a war that erupted in 2014 has killed more than 14,000 people. Some international airlines have begun suspending flights to Ukraine, but the Ukrainian government says it sees no point closing its airspace in response to Moscow's troop buildup. Dutch airline KLM, part of Air France, says it would stop flying to Ukraine, and Germany's Lufthansa says it is considering suspending flights. The Infrastructure Ministry says airlines are continuing to operate without restrictions. But countries are still insistent a diplomatic solution is possible to ending the crisis.
I made clear, as President Biden did today in his conversation with President Putin, that a diplomatic path to resolving this crisis, a crisis created by the unprovoked massing of Russian forces all around Ukraine, that diplomatic path remains open. The way for Moscow to show that it wants to pursue that path is simple. It should de-escalate rather than escalate.
Senior U.S. officials today said they could not confirm reports the U.S. intelligence indicates that Russia is planning to invade Ukraine on Wednesday, but say they would try to prevent any surprise attack by sharing what they know of Russia's plans. In the meantime, life goes on as usual in the Ukrainian capital, Kiev. Sudan's military leader, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, says he took personal responsibility for investigations of protesters' deaths and that 5 or 6 are ongoing, adding that there are suspicions of involvement by outside groups. He made the remark at a recent TV interview where he also said the armed forces is committed to handing over power to an elected government or to an arrangement decided through national consensus, repeating a commitment to holding elections in mid-2023. He said the military had resistance committees that are leading the protest movement. They agree on many points. Resistance committees have rejected dialogue with the military. He said meetings between Sudanese and Israeli officials are part of security cooperation, as well as Western condemnation. U.S. officials say they're looking into options to respond to the killing of at least 79 protesters and into moves to impede civilian-led government. The Tigers head coach Otis Hewley has commended the mental toughness of his players after they held on to beat Mali in their final Group B game at the FIBA World Cup qualifying tournament in Belgrade. Nigeria almost self-destructed after blowing a 21-point lead as Mali turned up the defensive pressure, closing to within 1 point inside the last minute. However, Nigeria managed to cling on and seal back-to-back qualification for the FIBA Women's World Cup.
Having one point guard, it really made it tough. Fighting a team who was really in survival. I need to do this. This is my last chance mode. Those are dangerous people. People who are not afraid to die. You can't protect yourself from folks like that when you're not fully, up to staff. But our girls were mentally tough enough to still win.
We battled through a lot of adversity before getting here. We had Ezinne Kalu injure herself in the beginning of the season. Just all the other stuff with the federation, and we were able to put everything together and just come out and play and win.
Israel Adesanya has retained his UFC middleweight championship with a unanimous decision win over Robert Whittaker. After 5 competitive rounds in their rematch, Adesanya prevailed 48-47, 48-47, 49-46 on the judges' scorecards in the main event of the UFC 271 in Houston, Texas. The 32-year-old remains unbeaten in his division and has now defended his title 4 times. He is now targeting a 5th title defense against top contender Jared Cannonier in June. In the Premier League, Liverpool are still keeping leaders Manchester City on their toes after claiming a slender 1-0 win at rock-bottom Burnley. Elsewhere, Wolves made it 3 Premier League defeats in a row for Tottenham with the 2 first-half goals. Newcastle's Premier League survival hopes gained further momentum with a 1-0 win over Aston Villa, while Leicester and West Ham battled to a 2-2 draw. Felix Auger-Aliassime is finally a winner, won his first ATP Tour at the 9th attempt after defeating Stefanos Tsitsipas 6-4, 6-2 in the final of the ABN AMRO World Tennis Tournament. Felix broke serve in the opening game of the match before racing through the set in 40 minutes. He raised his game even further in the second set, breaking to love in the opening game before a second break in the fifth gave him a 4-1 lead. Tsitsipas had no way back, with the Canadian comfortably serving out to complete victory in 79 minutes.
2 sets to love. 6-4, 6-2.
And once again, to remind our viewers, your award-winning television station, Channels Television, will be off the air on the DSTV platform between 12 midnight tonight and 5 o'clock tomorrow morning. This is to allow us to migrate to our new satellite. The signals will be restored after the migration, and you will continue to receive us as before. During this period, you can still watch Channels Television on all other platforms online, on satellite and on smart TVs. We do apologize for any inconvenience this may cause our viewers. And the main news again, a total of 5 bodies have now been recovered from the site of a tragic building collapse in the Yaba area of Lagos. 2 more bodies were discovered today from the building, which caved in on Saturday. Also today, the Delta State government sealed up the premises of Horizon Shine Nursery and Primary School in Asaba, following the death of a 19-month-old pupil of the school who was allegedly beaten by his teacher. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani. From all of us here, it's good night.